This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/iHeart. That's greenlight.com/iHeart.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast and are not intended to malign any religion, group, club, organization, business, individual, anyone, or anything. I'm Sarah Edmondson.
And I'm Anthony Nippy Ames. And this is
A Little Bit Culty.
Cults are commonplace now. From fandoms to fads, we're examining them all. We look at what happens when things that seem like a great thing at first go bad.
Every week, we chat with survivors, experts, and whistleblowers for real culty stories told directly by the people who lived through them, because we want you to learn a few things that we've had to learn the hard way.
For example, if you think you're too smart to get sucked into something culty, you might be prime recruitment material, and who knows, you could already be in a cult. If you're not aware of your programming, you're probably being programmed, so keep listening to find out.
We'll talk about all sorts of topics on the show, but be aware, this podcast might contain stories that could be alarming to some of our listeners, so please check our show notes for more detailed descriptions and take care of yourself.
Subscribe to our Patreon for Thursday bonus episodes, Q&A, and all sorts of exclusive content. That's patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Welcome to Season 7 of A Little Bit Culty.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to my love.
Welcome back to part 2 with Laci Bean. If you didn't listen to the first one, put it in reverse.
You know what to do. Welcome back to part 2 with Laci Bean.
Hi.
So tell us about, you left one cult, but then you're still riding Christianity for how long?
Riding Christianity.
Riding the Jesus train.
Yeah. So I left in 2011, and that was the year I got married. I did not deconstruct until 2020. Well, I started my deconstruction journey in 2020.
Okay, so what are those 9 years like? So now you're not in the cult anymore, but you're in the high control Christian fundamentalist ministry.
Yeah.
And you're just in a normal small town church, or what is it?
Well, we moved around a lot. So my husband's family, they would move wherever Jesus told them to. And so I married into that. So we ended up moving a handful of times because of Jesus. So we met in Texas, then we moved to North Idaho, then we moved to California, then we were in Oregon, then we went to South Idaho, and now we're in Tennessee.
So Jesus is a travel agent.
Jesus is a travel agent.
He does
apparently.
it all.
Yeah.
Now, was this, and I don't mean to make light of it, but
Oh, it's okay. We make light of it.
all right. Are these like, I had a dream, I spoke to Jesus, or I connected with Jesus, or Jesus, like, how do people who feel like Jesus is telling them, is it an email? Like, how are they getting it?
I wish it was an email. That makes things a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
It was always kind of, this is what was hard, is when I was in the cult, I had a really hard time listening to my inner self, because I would be like, oh, I feel like Jesus is telling me X, Y, Z. And then the leader would be like, you're not hearing from Jesus right. So then his family would be like, oh, we feel like Jesus is telling us to move here, there, and everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it was very much more just like your inner voice. And I feel like a lot of times it was confirmation bias, where we would be like, oh, we're feeling Idaho. And then we'd go to town and then be like, I saw 4 Idaho license plates.
So it's like signs.
Jesus. Yeah.
A mixture of signs and intuition, and then following that. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
An email would be way easier.
And then our last few moves that we did, we had already started deconstructing. So we were like, we just moved for ourselves for like economic reasons and things like that. So we got out of it. But yeah, I kind of just moved right into that with them. And I submitted to my job as a wife and a mom. And I started having kids within 2 years of getting married, popped out 3 babies. was a stay-at-home mom, planned on homeschooling my kids until I realized I like motherhood. I don't love motherhood to the point where I'm willing to spend all day, every day with my kids doing school, and like I need a break. And once I started realizing like this isn't for me and we chose to not homeschool our kids, some tension started. It wasn't big, but it was a little bit of tension with his side of the family because they had homeschooled. And so the thought of putting our kids in public school was terrifying, which I will say, rightfully so in today's world. There's always the risk of a school shooting. So there's that. But their fear was more also of like, you're going to be influenced by sinners, or they're going to be exposed to things that they shouldn't be exposed to, things like that. But I still just was not enjoying it as much. But I tried to like tamp that down and be like, it's what Jesus wants me to do. I'm still being a good mom. Maybe I can create some kind of job from home. So then I went down all these rabbit holes, joined too many MLMs to try to be the girl boss that there is. But then everything changed in 2020 when Trump was running for president for the second term. And I regretfully did vote for him in 2016 because I was a Christian. You vote Republican. It's what you're supposed to do because God, guns, and abortion. They all go together, and that's how you have to vote. So I had voted for him in 2016. My brother's gay, and we were talking on the phone, and he was like, are you going to vote for him again? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to. He's like, why? And I was like, he was a good president, and he really deserves another term to really hash out and like really finish what he started. And my brother goes, what good did he do? And I went, and I couldn't answer the question at all whatsoever because I didn't know. I just voted for him because he was a Republican, and that's what I was told to do. So I did not know any of like his policies, procedures. I didn't know anything good, bad, or, whatever. Anything bad he had done, I had just brushed it off. Oh, it's locker room talk. It's this. It's boys being boys. It was all the stuff we had been taught within evangelicalism and within our society to just brush away. And then he said, you do know he has a lot of sexual assault allegations against him, some of them including minors. I did not know that. When I was pregnant with my second child, I was consumed. We had a lot of medical stuff with her going on. So I kind of stayed out of the media. And so I was very much in the dark when it came to anything political, pretty much. When he said this, it kind of it was the shake I needed in that moment to realize who I was voting for. And he said, I'll send you some court documents. So he sent me some court documents. I read over them that night, and I just cried. I cried and cried and cried because I was a sexual assault survivor from my childhood. And I was like, how can I vote for this man? If that was my child, I wouldn't be able to vote for him. So why would I vote for him now? And the thing that was really tripping me up was that everybody in my circle within the Christian sphere was saying, you vote for Trump because God is saying to vote for him. He is God's man. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why?
And why not another candidate?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was it about? Just because he's Republican? Like
Because
any
he's
Republican? Okay.
Yes, because he's Republican.
Okay.
And the Republicans-
So Republicans, the religion people are the Republicans' fan base.
Yes, yes. And and I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know if you've ever read the book Jesus and John Wayne.
No, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
So good. And she is such an amazing investigator and researcher on that whole topic of like Christians and politics and Christian nationalism and where it all started, how it started. It's a great read. I highly recommend it. That one really did help me when I first started questioning stuff.
The title's great.
And you kind of just touched on this, and if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to, but you just sort of slid in there that you were a child sex abuse survivor.
Yeah.
So that had happened with
When I was
you were young.
8, yeah, we can talk about it. When I think I was 7 or 8, I had a stepbrother I say with quotations, stepbrother. We're not really sure whose child he is. Our family tree is a tornado. The 23andMe thing is insane. We found out so many family secrets.
It goes
was
straight
wild.
up?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a stick. It's not a tree. So I had this like step half brother, whatever, and he didn't live with us, but he'd come and visit off and on. And he was around 16 or 17 around the time, and I was 8, and he sexually assaulted me. Come to find out, after I had told my family, I told my family when I was 30, he had tried to get my older sister to sleep with him that same weekend that all of this had happened. And so after that, he had started stealing from my grandma. And so my parents like excommunicated him basically and stopped having contact with him. There was a whole bunch of other issues, but they didn't know it, but they took him out of the picture. So I was never assaulted again. But it still caused a lot of trauma that I carried into my adulthood. And I literally didn't tell my family till, like, my brother knew. I told him when I was 29. I told my mom and dad and my sister when I was 30. And so, yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I think that was also another big reason why I pushed myself into religion, was because I felt so unclean that I felt like Jesus could make me pure again, even though it wasn't my fault. I was
thought
messed
it was your
up.
fault.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that was a big thing that also pushed me that direction. But yeah.
Right. And that makes sense, hearing what you found out about Trump and your experience. And then, so this was the first crack in your veneer.
Yes.
When did it go from that to like, okay, I'm agnostic? How did the dominoes fall?
It was a gradual, I say gradual, but it was also a very fast process. A lot of people who deconstruct are like, oh, I deconstructed over like 10 years. I was like, yeah, I deconstructed over like 2. So that happened, and the elections were pretty much right around the corner. I had already been kind of ostracized because I stood with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, and there was some family members that did not agree with my stance with them on that. I had wrote a blog post saying that I was apologizing to the Black Lives Matter movement, and in the post I talked about, I'm sorry I didn't see my inherent racism. And they took it as I was apologizing for being born white. I'm like, that's not what I said. But I was already ostracized. They knew I didn't like Trump, but they said, you vote for Trump because that's what God tells you to do. And I'm like, that's not the God that I grew up with. That was not the God you taught me about. That's not the morals and ethics that we were being instilled with. How can I vote for this guy? And how do I believe that God is saying this is God's man by all these big pastors when it's not matching up ethically or morally? And that's when I realized they can't hear from God any more than I can hear from God. They're going off their own inherited belief system or confirmation bias. Like, they're going off their own thing. And I decided I'm going to start questioning a lot of my beliefs. And I set up really strong boundaries with certain people and family members in my life that I'm walking down this road and I don't want anyone's input. I want to do this by myself. That caused a lot of turmoil. My husband was scared because the first thing was I decided I wasn't Republican anymore. That terrified him. And he didn't say anything at the time, except when I told him, he said, we're not vaccinating our kids. Because he took that as like, you're really going to go you're going to go down this path and you're going to go to the other side extreme. Granted, he was right. I did. But he was terrified. He had been indoctrinated with the anti-vax movement. I had also been indoctrinated with that. We're still in the midst of COVID. And now I'm saying I'm not voting for Trump. And he's thinking they're about to come take my guns away and my wife's going to vote for that. But he was like, I'm going to give you the space to go down whatever this road is that you're going down. And I'm going to stand by your side, whether I agree with it or not, or I understand it or not, I'm going to stand by your side. So for the next year or so, it was very uncomfortable. It was very tumultuous between his family and me. And he was kind of stuck in the middle, did not like the confrontation, did not want to deal with what was going on, but also wanted to allow me the space to heal. So since I had nobody around me to talk to, I started doing social media. I joined TikTok, which again, that was a big no-no because China is stealing all of our data. So I was like, I'm just going to join TikTok and tell nobody. And now I have 100,000 followers out there. I'm like, okay, well, that didn't happen. But started finding people that were like-minded, that were also deconstructing, that were Christians, saying, you don't have to vote for Trump. But they were kind of pulling back the facade of all of the religious
Is
extremism,
there
Christian nationalism.
Christians doing it?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Who
There
to
are
this
Christian Democrats.
There are Christian Democrats, and I was meeting them, and it was amazing. My brother and sister helped me too. They sent me a bunch of different videos and explained politics and policies more to me. So I started diving into that. And as I was diving into the political side, the religious side was crumbling right along with it because so much of it was built together. We were also in the middle of COVID, and all these people are now becoming anti-COVID vaccine when they had vaccinated their families before. My grandma died from it, and I'm like, this is a real thing. Maybe we should at least get this one vaccine. Started looking into that. Before you know it, my entire family is vaccinated now. So it was a domino that just made me jump off the edge of the cliff.
This podcast wouldn't even exist without our amazing, supportive, generous patrons. Come find us on Patreon. We are at patreon.com/littlebitculty. Go there for bonus episodes, live Q&As with past guests, exclusive content, and lots of other goodies. Subscribe now and help us keep this podcast going. That's patreon.com/littlebitculty. And now, a brief message from our Little Bit Culty sponsors. And remember, when you support our sponsors, you're supporting this podcast. You've heard from our sponsors. Now let's get back to a Little Bit Culty, shall we? I know you've done a lot of work in deconstruction and healing and trauma and stuff. I know that one thing for us, and I've seen this as a pattern in working with people and then hearing people's story in the podcast, is that people often go from one extreme to another. Almost like even with Nexium, we weren't allowed to drink, right? We're allowed to drink, we're allowed to do drugs, and then people got out and went on a bender.
Yes.
Or even with the vaccine situation. But it was the opposite. People who were vaccinating got out of what they were thinking and then became anti-vaxxers. How do we, this is something that Nippy and I talk about all the time. How do you know you're not just swapping one thing for
one
another?
extremism for another. The term I have is every group has an extreme version of themselves.
Yeah.
And so how do you know you're in the group, and how do you know you're not an extreme version of that group? What's the checks and balances, I guess, for you?
Yeah, we talk about this. I've talked about this off and on, is that when you deconstruct, it's really common for people to deconstruct the beliefs, but not deconstruct the evangelicalism part. So then they feel like this new version of whatever they believe in now spiritually or don't believe in is now the one inerrant truth. And so with people in the comments of my videos and stuff, when they are like, well, God is just this fairy God, it's just imaginary. He doesn't exist. And I'm like, okay, that's your opinion. That's your belief. But I also want to hold space for people who do believe in that. My co-host, she believes in a lot of the witchy stuff. I think it's interesting, but I'm a skeptic. But am I going to downplay what she believes in? No. Am I going to downplay what other people believe in? No. You're allowed to believe in what you want to believe in. But if your beliefs are harmful and causing trauma, then we need to call that out. So long story short, I just try to not push that this is the one inerrant truth. Whether I agree with them or not, it's holding the space for us to have different opinions and views. Because in the end, we all don't know. We don't know shit, It's all a question. We still don't know. We don't know until we die. And who knows? I could be reincarnated into a freaking camel, or I could go to hell, even though I really don't believe that's a real place. Or I could go to heaven, or it could just be black and the existence just ends right there. Who knows? We don't know. So holding
Sarah
that
and I
space.
have been going down some rabbit holes in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I follow some Neil deGrasse Tyson stuff and some science stuff. And there was one about the concept of time not existing and how long is now. And so I had this conversation with Sarah, and then I went out to play basketball with my dad 2 Sundays ago. And no one showed up, and we just ended up shooting hoops together for an hour. And I was telling him about this, and I was like, some of the more scientific, philosophical, atheist minds at the end of their careers, or at some point in their careers, get to a point where they go from not believing in religion to thinking, or God, if that's what you want to call it, or a world order, to there for sure is. But they're not evangelical about it. They've gone through their spiritual journey through finding things out about the universe, and they go, this is amazing. And then they have probably a personal experience. And for me, that's kind of what I've gone through, that they're,
maybe there's
20
something.
years ago, I was like, there's no fucking way there's a God.
Now I'm like, it's kind of self-evident,
There's
but not
something.
in the way that I've been told and religion's been presented to me. It's like, I think religion and your religious beliefs should be private in the same way your sexuality should be. And we should start championing that. And if you want to have conversations about God, they shouldn't be like, you're telling me your dogma. It should be like, what was your experience? And I go, what was mine? I go, and the congruencies of those conversations, I think, are the gold, right? Like, yes, I had that. And then,
But the next thing you know, you want to start a little group and talk about it, and then you have Bible study, and now you're a church.
Now you're a church. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
so that's kind of where I am.
The thing I think that if you do have a church and you do have a group or whatever it is, I think the biggest thing that you can do to keep it from becoming a cult or becoming very dogmatic is always allow questions. Always allow doubt.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that you were not allowed to doubt. You were not allowed to ask questions. And if you did ask questions or you did doubt, you were given these very spiritual bypassing answers of God's ways are higher than our ways. Oh, we can ask him when we get to heaven. We're not meant to know. It's above our understanding.
How convenient.
Which is
Yeah.
antithetical to religion.
Exactly.
So you've been out of both the cult and then your Christian experience for a while now. What's the process of deconstructing like for you?
So
And where
for-
are you now?
For me, at the beginning, it was like, if this is not the truth, I went to the extreme of like, if this is not the truth, then what is the truth? Read a bunch of books, tried to figure out what was what, until one day I said, I don't fucking care. I don't care what the truth is. All I care about is being a good person, raising my family, raising good kids, and just enjoying the life I do have because that's all I know that is here. So I'm going to enjoy this. Wherever this leads me is where it leads me. Now,
Great.
at the same time, I did not know this was happening. I knew and understood how traumatic this was for me going through this deconstruction. I didn't want to do this to my husband, especially somebody who literally was born into Christianity and this belief system. So I didn't share with him videos or I didn't send him anything on TikTok. I would talk very little about certain things. And I just was kind of letting him do his own thing. Little did I know, he decided one day, I want to understand better of what my wife is going through. So he started watching videos, researching different things. And after about a year or so, we had just moved to Tennessee and we were sitting outside on the porch and he started talking and he brought up a TikTok creator. And I went, I know that TikTok creator. That TikTok creator is an atheist. What are you doing following that TikTok creator? And little by little, he was, through his research, was getting exposed to a lot of the same creators that I had been exposed to and had learned from. And it started to change his mind. And he started to grow. And as he started to grow and deconstruct, he started to feel comfortable asking me questions or us having conversations to the point where now he's like, he's gone to the other extreme where he's still angry about a lot of stuff that he was raised in and he's still working through that. But he's in the phase of like, it's all bullshit and I hate it all. And he has a lot of regrets. And so he's at the point where he's having a hard time holding space for even just people like, oh God, this. He's like, it's all fake. Because he's still really angry. But I think that's a really good thing. That was what I would tell my clients when I would do trauma recovery coaching was when they'd be like, I'm just so angry. How do I make the anger go away? And I'm like, you don't want the anger to go away yet. Your body's still feeling it. Your body is still processing through it. Allow yourself for the first time to feel the anger. Because in Christianity, we were taught that our emotions were either positive or they were negative. Anger, frustration, anything like that was seen as a negative emotion. Any emotion can have a negative impact on you, even happiness. If you're walking around like it's all sunshine and rainbows when your house is burning around you, that's going to have
That's
a
not
negative impact, you know?
Yeah.
You have to understand how to have that emotional regulation and understand the emotion you're feeling and how to process through it. This anger is going to last a while because you've never been able to feel it and you have a lot to be angry right now about. So go to therapy and feel your anger and walk through it. And
That's great advice. And by
That
the
is
way,
great advice.
that advice could also, you could have said that to an ex-Nexium person and it would be just as relevant. 'Cause we had
Exactly.
the exact same thing.
Yes.
But yeah, that was verbatim. I would have said that to an ex-Nexium.
Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned it. I know you're not doing it anymore, but tell us just quickly about why you became a trauma recovery coach, what you learned, and why you stopped.
So I started posting on social media when I started to join and things. I started to post because I kind of used it as like a deconstruct with me. Let's all join us on this journey of deconstruction and let's see where the fuck this goes. And it was a way for me to have community because I didn't have anybody around me I could talk to about it. So I started making content and it exploded. And I realized very quickly just how many people were deconstructing from religion, were deconstructing from republicanism, and just really wanted to see and find other people who were like-minded. So when I started making that content, I realized how many people were still hurting and traumatized from their religious trauma and didn't know how to get past it. And therapists, not all of them are equipped to understand religious trauma, especially if they themselves are still very religious, because religion is seen as something that's so positive. It's hard for a lot of people to see the negative aspects that come along with, especially like more fundamentalist type of religions. So I wanted to offer a hand to people and share just what I had learned through deconstruction and kind of hold their hand along the way of them deconstructing and reassure them that they're on the right path and that they can do this. It's kind of like what I compare it to Alcoholics Anonymous. You have like a sponsor and you need that sponsor because the sponsor understands what you're going through because they've gone through it. So as a trauma recovery coach, I was able to walk through it with them because I myself had experienced it. So I got trained under the International Association for Trauma Recovery. And the lady who designed it is a therapist, and she saw just this gap within like a need for people to help walk alongside other people who've had like-minded traumas. So going through this program, I took classes, I took tests, I got certified. And one of the things, like we have a board of ethics, you have to abide by all of the different things. You can't work with people who are active in any kind of addiction or suicidal ideation. You try to stay in your lane, and you're not allowed to work in trauma that is not associated with something you haven't personally experienced. So for example, I've never had a miscarriage. So I wouldn't advertise myself as like, I can help you through miscarriages. I wouldn't know the first thing because I've never had one. So my specialty was religious trauma. And I had the absolute honor and privilege of walking through with a handful of people through their journey. And a lot of it was just reminding them that like you have it within yourself to listen to your heart and to reconnect with your own intuition, because religion has the ability to divide us from our own self. And we question every little thing. You know, if I do this, is God going to be mad at me? Or am I following the devil? Am I being influenced by X, Y, and Z? And we shut down our own self. So a lot of it was just reconnecting with ourself, doing a lot of like inner child work, and reminding ourselves when we would have these indoctrinative thoughts pop up, reminding ourselves that's the indoctrination. That's not my reality. And it was literally just reaffirming that to them on a weekly, bi-weekly basis as they walked through this until they felt stronger and didn't have so many triggers to their religious trauma.
So the word deconstruction, I think our equivalent is like deprogramming.
Yeah.
The same thing, really.
Yeah.
Is working with a coach sort of the best way? Or like, is there a process that you can recommend to people who maybe can't afford that or don't know where to, like, let's just say they want to do it on their own. What are some of the things that they could do in their day-to-day life that would be a deconstruction or deprogramming process?
Biggest thing is like if you can't afford it or if you don't have insurance that's going to cover therapy, then of course, first therapy. Like I always recommend that. But if you can't do that, finding other like-minded people on social media who have walked the walk and just asking them like, what helped you? I wrote a book called Leaving the Sanctuary, and it kind of shares my story of leaving and what I went through while also offering tips and suggestions. I talk about boundary setting and how to set boundaries, what to do if somebody is like constantly crossing those boundaries. I talk about the indoctrination and reminding yourself that it's the indoctrination, it's not your reality. I talk about reconnecting with yourself, giving yourself time. We talk about marriages and things like that. So not to like plug myself, but that's a really cheap and easy way to just read that book, and then gives you some really hardcore, fundamental, tangible things that you can use in your day-to-day life.
Great.
And finding a community that has gone through what you've gone through, even if it's
Do you
not
ever-
a coach.
Well, that kind of leads into the social media. How do you think sharing on social media has helped you?
I think it has been very helpful, while at the same time it's like a double-edged sword. So it's been very helpful and instrumental in my deconstruction in itself. But you always have those it's social media. So I've had some crazy people who just tell me I need to get in my kitchen and make a sandwich for my husband. And I had one guy tell me he'd grate me in a recent video because how dare I stand up against Trump. So there's been a lot.
Jesus.
Oh yeah. Social media can be super
Nasty.
healing while also being ridiculously nasty. So it was healing for a season.
You should do a segment where you're making a sandwich and you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Look at
did
me.
multitasking.
Making
Yeah.
a sandwich for
Too
my
bad
husband.
you can't do that in the
and
church.
deconstructing.
Yeah.
Sandwich for Satan. No, maybe that's the name of this episode.
There you go. So just for Satan.
Satan sandwich.
I'm always thinking about the title of the the
Right.
episode as we're doing it.
For more background on what brought us here, check out Sarah's page-turning memoir. It's called Scarred, The True Story of How I Escaped NXIVM, the cult that bound my life. It's available on Amazon, Audible, and at most bookstores. Highly recommend, of course, because she's my wife. And now, a brief message from our Little Bit Culty sponsors. Remember, when you support our sponsors, you support our podcast. Break time's over, people. Let's get back to this episode of A Little Bit Culty. It's a good one.
But I'm just curious, in your recovery journey and the suggestion of finding community, which has always been my MO, have you ever found culty dynamics in the recovery space?
Yep, absolutely. So I have a
Pray tell.
podcast that I do with my best friend. It's called Deadly Faith. So we cover religious true crimes and we cover all religions. So we're not just Christianity. We've covered a lot of different religions, a lot of Mormon. We're trying not to cover as much Mormon, but I'm like, it's a bad one,
They've got it down.
They
too.
do.
Well, they have
got
the
a-
blood covenant, right?
yeah.
So that
They've got so much. It's
They got
just,
a backstory. They're well
Yeah.
marketed. Yeah.
But I'm actually working on an episode where I am talking about, there's a group, I won't give it away in this episode, but there's a ex-evangelical type group that has had some, I say scandals. It's nothing like crazy major, but basically doing things that they sit there and call mega churches out for or other churches out for, that they're being kind of hypocritical. And so I was like, I'm going to do an episode on this and we're going to talk about it, because it's not just within Christian spaces that hypocrisy and scandals or toxic masculinity and things like that can happen. It can happen in our own circles, and it does. And that's unfortunate. But if I'm going to talk about it in all the other churches, we need to talk about it in our own
Yep.
group.
That becomes a little tricky.
what are some of the red flags to look for in any community, whether it's the cult recovery or deconstructing or trying to find a healthy church? Like, what are the things that you tell people now moving forward?
Yeah, like I said earlier, like being able to ask questions and doubt, and that not be completely shut down. When you bring up a grievance that you have with the leader or the board or whatever it may be with the group, and if it becomes a situation where they shut it down or they give you a really quick snippet answer kind of thing, and then start whether it's on social media, they start deleting your comments, or they start being like, oh, we're not going to talk about this again, and don't offer that room for discourse. Huge red flag, in my opinion. Very big red flag. I feel like that's just going right back into fundamentalism. Yeah, I think those would be the biggest things. And telling you not to listen to yourself, oh, that's not right. Disconnecting you from your own inner monologue, I feel like is a really big red flag as well.
Yeah.
It's such a through line between all the guests we've ever talked to, that you're having a inner dialogue with yourself, trying to make decisions. And when you're doubting every single thing that's coming into your brain and can't think for yourself, and then relying on authority, I wish that there was a button you could switch. Actually, my mom was saying that she told me that when I realized, okay, Keith's a sociopath and not the most ethical, noble man in the world, I kind of like went back to my former self, like my true authentic self very, very quickly. It's almost like I just like jumped out of that reality back to the old reality.
That's kind of what I did.
Yeah. But
I had one foot in the old.
Yeah. And I think that's why we were able to. We never fully committed, even though like it was our lives in many ways. We didn't move to Albany.
We had 2 lives.
Yeah, we had sort of like 2 lives. We were like, boop, I'm going to go back to this life and do Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Okay. But every now and then, the things just keep popping in. And even now, like we've been out 8 years, and he'll say something, and I'll be like, do you believe that? Like, I know we learned that in NXIVM, because like a percentage of the things we learned in NXIVM were helpful sort of truths of the universe that Keith sort of like stole from other places.
Could have given it to you.
You know what I mean? Like he studied.
He Heinz 57'd his ministry or his group.
I like that.
He certainly did. He certainly did. And
that's what I always said that like with our group. I was like, it was the Heinz 57 of ministries. He just took what he wanted.
so I'm really curious about your process of like when you have the thought, you're like, is that me or is that what I learned? Because I know that in your book you talk a lot about like reconnecting with your authentic self. How do you know what your authentic self is?
Yeah.
If you've been immersed in this quagmire for so long. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Time. I know that's like so cliche, but it really does take time. When I wanted something, I was like, you know what? It's not hurting me or anybody else. I'm going to go do that, or I'm going to try that. I'm going to explore. What do I like? I had trapped myself in this dogma of just Christianity where I just cut off the whole other world. So in my house, I started exploring. Like I said earlier, I don't really technically believe in all the spiritual witchy stuff, but I love it. So I've got like crystals. I've got tarot cards. I've got little spell jars I've made. There are people that walk in my house, I won't name names, but related, that I'm sure they're like, the devil is in this house when they walk in. But I just love the vibe. I love the aesthetic of it. And so I let myself just start exploring that and seeing where it landed. I had purple hair for a solid 2.5 years and loved it. It got
experimenting.
Literally
you're doing what you would have done anyway.
At 16. I literally am just like reliving the life, allowed myself to mourn what I didn't get to experience. And this has been really helpful with my husband and I having the conversations of we missed out on a lot of dating and we can have those conversations where like, we really regret not having a hoe phase. Like, I really wish I'd had a hoe phase. I didn't have one.
We call it slut years.
Yeah. I didn't get to have
I have no idea what you
that.
guys are talking about.
Maybe you didn't miss out there.
No, what are slut years? I don't know what you guys are talking about. You can have those?
That's such a good point.
Sarah, maybe I should go have my
You should go
slut
have your
years.
slut years, babe.
Thank you, Laci. You've really opened.
Thanks, Laci.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Did you ever read Danielle Mestenek Young book, Uncultured, about the children of God? That book's great, and I think you guys should be TikTok buddies also. But
I did read that one. Yeah.
so we loved her. One of her things that she said is that like she wasn't allowed birthday parties in Children of God.
Yes.
So like recently she threw herself a Disney princess birthday
Absolutely.
with costumes, and like she's got a child of her own, but she got to really have that, which I think is so good. So,
Allow yourself those moments.
As you asked that question, getting a little more serious, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, and when I went through it, and tell me if this is kind of part of the process, I went through a thinking and feeling thing, like kind of like a strobe light. Like I had the intellectual side of me, which could evaluate, but then I would go, how do I think and how do I feel about this?
Yeah.
And then going and putting language to that. And oftentimes I was able to go, okay, this feeling is rooted in some sort of principle.
Yeah.
And this is me.
Yeah. So for coming out of evangelicalism, a lot of that I would say is helpful to do that, but within therapy sessions, because a lot of us within evangelicalism, all of that got shut down so hard. Like we didn't even know how to explore that. We're like, we're feeling this, but we don't know how to go any further in that.
You got the answer right away.
Yeah. So going into therapy and having a therapist be able to help you like, okay, let's peel back these layers. Cause we're like, wait, there's fucking layers? What the hell?
layers are much more complicated than black and white, hell, heaven, do this, do that. Like you said earlier, like I could have enjoyed the good part of this and recognized it's also toxic and I need to get out. It's not good or bad, which is really healthy because a lot of people I feel like get out
it's
and
like
then
slut years.
And then they demonize completely the thing that they left and not seeing even what was good about it, which is important, not to gloss over it, but to go, what was good that drew me in, so that you can see that, like, what was your hook, what was your susceptibility, so you don't go repeat that pattern also.
Yeah, and that's really big within evangelicalism and Christianity is that it's like you live in that black and white. This is good. This is bad. This is God. This is the devil. And that's how my husband grew up, was very black and white.
Yeah.
And then I deconstructed and I brought so much gray into his life. And that's honestly truthfully, the last chapter of my book is called Living in the Gray. And being comfortable in the gray and not having to have the answer to everything and not giving people these blasé kind of answers when they're like, so-and-so died in a car wreck. And I'm like, that sucks. And I'm really sorry that happened to you. I'm not going to sit there and say, God had a reason.
Yeah, making things binary is the
And also these platitudes. Like,
Yeah.
I saw something on Instagram of somebody she was just talking about the contrast between responses to people who are still in it and then responses to people who are in the real world. And the people who are still in it were like, well, that wasn't my experience. Or, but I find the tools still helpful. And then people in the real world are like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, that's awful.
I shared a story about something that we were going through, anti-Semitism thing that was going on and not being addressed appropriately by our school. And I was making a parallel that this is a micro that's going on in a macro in our country right now. And the person's like, well, yeah, that's just anecdotal. And I was fuming when he said that inside. And obviously you lose your cool, you lose the argument, or so to speak, or you discredit yourself. And I just had to fight every fiber in my body of telling him to go
Fuck himself.
blow it out his ass. I was just like, that's just anecdotal. Like that's my
that's the whole
family.
point.
That's
Yeah.
my
The whole
family.
point.
And it's
I'm
seeped into
experiencing
our,
this.
it was just to fortify, you minimize someone else's perspective to fortify your own.
And it's that belief that if I don't do that, I have to get defensive of this, because if I don't, then it could jeopardize whatever I'm holding on to. So like
Correct.
Christians become
Yes.
so defensive of it because they're afraid, like, if I admit that like your experience was valid, then does that bring into question my experience? Because they're so
Correct.
used to the black and white experience. If I say, if I validate yours, then does that invalidate mine? It's like, that's not how it works. There's so much gray in this. Yeah.
And you have the podcast, Deadly Faith. So you talk about different religious upbringings of serial killers.
So not just serial killers. We
Okay.
cover any true crime case that is religiously affiliated in any way, shape, or form. So
Oh, wow.
I'm about to cover a case actually tomorrow night. We're going to record it. And it is a pastor who tried to murder his entire family because he got behind on his bill and they were getting evicted from their home. And his whole family had no idea. So he thought, easy way out, I'm just going to murder them all.
Wow.
So goes against everything that you're taught and teaching as a pastor. So we talk about, like, is there religious beliefs that led him to believe this, that this was his best way out? So any other, cases we cover, was the religion and the religious belief systems playing a part in the crime? Or were,
Fascinating.
like, serial killers, we've done a lot of serial killer cases, and we talk about what was their interaction with religion? Was it them trying to use it to heal whatever this nurture demon evilness was in them? Or were they using it as a cover up to hide in plain sight their evilness so they could take out their crimes? Like BTK, he went to church, he committed one of the murders in a church, but yet was just a normal citizen, and everyone thought he was just Joe Blow, not BTK, a serial killer. So we talk about that. We talk about cults. We've covered a bunch of different cults on our show as well. We actually covered NXIVM last year.
You did?
And
Oh my goodness.
we covered NXIVM, which was super exciting.
Did you get into the women that died around him?
Yes, I'm trying to remember. It was so long ago, and we cover so many cases that I blank on a lot of them. It was a 2-part episode because she was like, Lola was the one who covered it, and she was like, got halfway through. She's like, this can be 2-parter. There's just too much shit to talk about.
Yeah.
So-
Oh my God.
But we talked about
Never
you a
ending.
lot in it as well. And that was before we were on that podcast together. So
Oh, great. I'll have to go back and listen.
yes, give us a listen. We'd love it.
And this is a new question that we asked a guest last time. What's one of your guilty pleasures, like something you weren't allowed to do then that you
There
get
we
to
go
do?
again,
That you get
Yes.
other than being a hoe. What do you
God.
what do you get to what do you get to enjoy now that you like a glass of wine, or what's your thing?
Honestly, okay, this is going to be really funny, and it's on the sex train. I came out as bisexual when I deconstructed like halfway through. I realized like, oh shit, like I actually think females are hot. And my husband actually walked through me. He walked with me through that like journey of really discovering that. And so I absolutely love getting to sit down and like watch a movie with him and then us both be like, dude, that chick's hot. Like, and just enjoying that together without the stigma of like, this is going to ruin our relationship or anything like that. He goes, we get to enjoy boobs together is what he says. And
Boobs
I think
are
that's
amazing.
hilarious.
Go on.
Libby and I also, I didn't realize that was my guilty pleasure because I don't feel guilty about it because I didn't have that rule, but I definitely also like to enjoy boobs.
Yeah.
on.
I love it. So
This conversation.
that and like
This
everything.
is a three-parter. We're going to break now, and we're going to go into...
Satan's boobies with Laci Bean.
Yeah, there you go. Satan's boobies. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. No. Yeah. It's probably that.
Anything we
Just
didn't cover,
enjoying-
like any major talking points or like things that you want to share or anything you want, like what do you hope people take away from the work that you do, your book and the podcast?
Just that you're not alone. That's like my biggest thing. And that's why I wrote the book was that you're not alone on this journey. You might feel alone because if you grew up in religion, then everyone around you within your family is religious. So you probably don't have anyone to talk to and you feel alone, but you're not. There's so many of us right now. I call it the Trump deconstruction era. Trump becoming president literally just made so many people walk away from their faith because it was so opposite of what we were raised on and all the ethics and morals we were instilled with. And so if you're one of those people, you're not alone. And if you like true crime, listen to our podcast because I love it and I want it to be our full-time job.
Amazing.
This isn't pumping Trump's tires or anything, but Trump is successfully destroying all sorts of
Oh, yes.
hierarchies by just
Just being
being
Trump.
himself.
Just being Trump.
Yeah.
Just being inflammatory and just
Which
being
we
like,
should
and
have
there's
seen that coming in.
There's a silver lining to that, you know?
He bankrupt how many businesses? Like we should have known this is what he was going to do. Like he's just really good at fucking shit up. That's
Thank you,
okay, though.
Trump.
So I will say thank you for that. Like he did help me deconstruct and I'm way more happy now than I was when I was in religion. So like thanks for that.
Yeah.
Fist bump.
So your vote worked out in a weird way.
In a weird way. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Laci. This has been such a treat. Do you like what you hear on A Little Bit Culty? Then please do give us a rating, a review, and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or even better, share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear it. Maybe they're in a cult. Maybe they're a little bit susceptible. Just share the love. Thanks. Well, everybody, that was part 2 with our new friend, Laci Bean.
That was fun.
I just enjoyed that so much.
Good interview.
Really
funny.
good. She's really clear. She's can laugh, which of course I think we all need sometimes. We've covered, like we said at the beginning of this 2-parter, that we've covered a lot of Christian patriarchal ministries and offshoots, and sometimes some of the stories start to blend together. But I think it's important to focus on the deconstruction and sort of really question these things.
For me, it was a reminder of how important time is in healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So check out her podcast, check out her book. Thanks, Laci, for taking the time. And till next time.
Deuces.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean. I'm hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
A Little Bit Culty is a Trace 120 production, executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames, in collaboration with Amphibian Media. Our co-creator is Jess Tardy. Audio engineering by Red Cayman Studios, and our writing and research is done by Emma Deal and Kristen Reeder. Our theme song, Cultivated, is by the artists John Bryant and Nigel Aslin.